In my case with free soloing, the consequences are almost always death. Like for the most part, if you fall off, you're gonna die.
We understand the psychology of excellence, and we understand what a great mindset means and how to be great with fear. And then there's Alex Honnold. Welcome back, or welcome to the Finding Mastery podcast, where we dive into the minds of the world's greatest thinkers and doers. I am your host, Dr. Michael Gervais, by trade and training a high-performance psychologist. Now, the whole idea behind these conversations, it's pretty simple: to sit with the extraordinaries and learn about how they work from the inside out. Today's guest is legendary climber Alex Honnold, best known for his free solo ascent of El Capitan, meaning climbing nearly 3,000 feet of sheer rock face. No ropes, no safety lines. All of this was featured in the Oscar-winning documentary Free Solo.
You have to have a lot of not just self-belief, but belief in the goodness of the world in order to put yourself out there and try something that hasn't been done, or like try to push. In your 20s, you're like constantly surprising yourself. We're like, oh, I did something I didn't think I could do. It was incredible. Like now I'm rewriting what I think I'm capable of. Because it's freaking hard work, and especially as I get older, it's like probably harder and harder work. You surprise yourself with your own success less often.
We explore the mindset behind the climber, how Alex organizes his inner life towards mastery.
Most people that say they're afraid of heights are actually just afraid of like falling off an edge and dying. And you're like, well, that's totally well-founded. You should be afraid of falling to your death. I don't want to fall off something. It's just that I'm very confident that I'm not going to fall off most things.
How he manages risk, consequence, and fear with a rare clarity.
I would prefer to use risk to describe the likelihood of something happening, and the consequences being what will happen if that thing does happen.
We also talk about fatherhood and how he's no longer just chasing the next set.
I still love sending, but I know that sending the hardest things in the world will only last for, at the most another decade. But what do I do with the other 40 or 50 years? I'm kind of like, I want to build like a healthy, well-rounded future.
I want to invite you to listen for his deeper framework and how he has this rare honesty to get right down into the truth.
Now I'm starting to think about it a little bit more because my 3-year-old might remember me if I die at this point, maybe.
So with that, let's jump right into this week's conversation with perhaps the most significant mind in all of sports, the one and only Alex Honnold. Alex, when it comes to the folks that I think are the most significant in the world of athletics, you sit tall on the mountaintop here. And so I love the way you've designed your life, what you've done, and how you carry yourself. So I'm stoked to sit with you because I think the way that you've done what you've done is really special, and you have a lot to teach us. So thank you for coming in.
I appreciate that. I don't know if I have anything to teach, but let's chat and find out.
I figured you'd say that. Like, that's all part of it.
I'm just living. I'm struggling the same as everybody else, just doing my best.
Yeah. When you say struggle, like, do you mean that in like a suffering struggle, or like a?
No, I mean like aspiring to do your best all the time. But same. I have 2 little kids. I'm like navigating parenthood. I'm constantly trying to decide if I'm doing the right thing. Like, should I be training more? Should I be training less? Should I be resting? Should I be going harder? It's like, what should I be spending my time on? It's all the same sort of things that everybody deals with.
It's definitely the same stuff that I wrestle with. So how old are your kids?
1 and 3.
1 and 3. Let's start here for a minute. When my son was born, so he's now 16. When my son was born, a friend of mine asked me this question. It'd be fun to ask you this question, same question. Mike, if you had the chance to go to Mars and you'd be the first one to go to Mars, the only hiccup is that you've got a 50% success rate. Would you go? And instantly, I'll tell you my answer, my reflective answer, but what is yours?
Oh, I'd kind of have to think about it, but I definitely would at least consider it.
Yeah, I think that you'd probably lean on the side of like, yeah, there's something here. There's something.
It's hard to say though. I mean, I think I would wind up leaning against that because I don't have any particular set of skills that would suit exploring Mars. Like I should not be the person to go to Mars, even though it'd be amazing and like that's cool and doing a first is cool, but it just shouldn't be me. Because
you're full of firsts. Like that's something that you've lived. There's a ethos in your world of climbing that like when you do a first ascent or whatever it might be, that's a thing.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, it's nice to. Yeah, maybe that's just sort of like explorer's gene or something, but just the idea of pushing boundaries a little bit, like doing something new. I mean, it's exciting.
Yeah. And so then he sweetens. So instantly I was like, oh, yeah, I'm going. And then I paused and I said, whoa, wait a minute. It's like my son was like 6 months old. Like, oh, wait, hold on. I got a 6-month-old. I go, I don't know right now. And then, so then he sweetened it and he said, What if the whole thing was designed that you're the one that saves the planet and you either go or don't go? So he added like a social responsibility on it. And I was like, yeah.
Then you obviously go, right?
Then you obviously go, right? And then he says, okay, if I take that away, what's the hesitation? And so obviously you go, right, for the social responsibility. But if that's not on the table, let's go back to your response. Like, do you bring your children into that decision-making factor, or is it, because I was like planted in two worlds. I was like,
well, I mean, you having a 6-month-old, I honestly wouldn't, because your 6-month-old wouldn't remember anyway. It's like, it doesn't matter to them.
yeah,
You know, it's like now I'm starting to think about it a little bit more because my 3-year-old might remember me if I die at this point, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, I mean, and this sounds really callous, but it is sort of true that if I die, you know, my wife will probably find somebody else eventually, or, you know, we have a rich community either way. It's like my kids wouldn't be totally bereft of like, they might not have their dad, but they would have plenty of people in their lives that look after them and love them and help take care of them. And like, they're not going to be left alone. You know, so you're kind of like, I don't know.
that's a cool feeling.
Well, I mean,
And
I
that's
don't know.
because of your friends.
Yeah, friends and family, and my wife's like a young, attractive woman. You know, like she'd find somebody eventually. You know what I mean? After hopefully a healthy period of mourning.
Yeah, right,
But like,
yeah.
but I mean, and she hates it when I talk about that kind of stuff because she's like, oh, that's so callous sounding. But I don't know, I'm kind of like, people lose parents all the time. It's not as if you're doomed. You know, like my dad died when I was 19, and that's obviously a blow, but it's not going to lead to a terrible life necessarily. You know, it's like, or it doesn't have to.
Yeah. So how did losing your father as a teenager impact you? Like, looking back at it now.
I was actually just reading this interesting book. I think it was a Malcolm Gladwell book, like maybe Dave and Goliath. I just read it on a flight, but he had a whole side about prominent historical figures who lost parents at young ages. And I have kind of thought that encountering like loss at a young age just encourages you to go a little harder in a way, because you're just reminded that life is short. Sort of like, oh, I have a finite amount of time, you got to use it.
Yeah, that definitely would have shaped you for sure.
And in my particular case, I think it also took off a little bit of the sort of parental pressure to like stay on a path. You know, not that my parents were explicitly pressuring me that hard, but they sort of expected me to go to college, expected me to wind up and, you know, I would have probably wound up an engineer or something. But then my dad dying kind of left the door open a little bit to like do other things, like maybe not finish my degree anyway. I dropped out of college. So I think that allowed a little more flexibility in a way.
You know, like, let's say it's a heavyweight boxer or a football player. You know, there's lots of scenarios I could pull in that oftentimes they'll say, well, once I get in the ring and I get my first hit or I get hit, then I settle down because I know it's not the big bad monster that I had imagined. Like, it's another skilled person. They're dangerous, you know, but I'm okay. And I think when we face hardships, one of the benefits to come, like, you can go through a hardship like a loss of a parent, and we could have 1,000 scenarios where you could find the track of post-traumatic stress disorder, or you could find the track for post-traumatic growth. You could find either path. And what I hear you saying is like, yeah, I had a real shocker in my life, and it was materially important, and it actually opened me up to go a little further.
Yeah, and actually, I mean, both my grandfathers on both sides and my father all died within sort of 3 years, like in late teens. And so I think...
Oh, so you had bang, bang, bang.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, and
wow.
not crazy traumatic things. You know, the grandparents were super old. They died natural causes. Like, it's all fine. But it definitely was a stark reminder, you know, that life's finite. And at a particularly important time of life too. You know, I was 19, I guess, when my dad died. So you're sort of like, oh, what am I doing with my life? You know, what am I doing at university? Like,
Yeah, you're out of high school.
yeah,
You were already
I'd
kind
done
of-
my first year at university and was not thriving. I was sort of like I wasn't well adapted to university lifestyle. It's like I was mostly just spending my time climbing and not that psyched.
So you were already kind of...
I was already searching.
Yeah, and you were already really good at climbing. Like, you were getting recognized at that point.
I wasn't that good. I'd gotten second at nationals, but that's only because the really good guys had stopped doing the youth competitions. They were all competing as adults. Actually, just by sheer,
I didn't know.
I was like, okay, I was not a child prodigy. I wasn't that good,
I'm
I was
glad you
psyched,
brought that up. Yeah,
but
you were psyched.
I was
Meaning
really psyched.
You
I
were
loved
stoked
climbing.
on it. You loved it.
Yeah, I loved it. But I was not by any means great. And it's interesting, just by sheer coincidence, the region I grew up in, Northern California, wound up sort of creating like 4 professional climbers of all the same age, and they've all been better than me my whole life, basically.
Who are these climbers?
So Ethan Pringle, who's still a professional climber, he's never as well known as some other climbers, but he beat me through all of childhood and everything until like maybe age 14 or 15 when he started competing as an adult instead and doing like international competitions and making money. And so then I was able to do a little better because he left the category.
Wait.
But then also, Kevin Jorgensen, who freed the Dawn Wall with Tommy Caldwell.
Yep.
He was also in my age group, same region, same everything. But he also competed as an adult at an early age because he was so good. Chris Sharma had come from the same region. He was like the leading climber of the last generation, basically. I didn't compete with him. He's slightly different, but same area. And so anyway, I grew up thinking I wasn't that good because everybody else was way better. And so
I have a whole new appreciation for you because part of the formation years, you were not the one. I always thought you were the one.
No, I sucked. I didn't suck. I was a good climber. I was not a great climber. But I was really into it and I loved doing it. I did it all the time. And I think that's an important distinction because
I think it is.
People look at some YouTube clip and they're like, oh, that guy is like, people, if you're thinking on the nature versus nurture spectrum, they're always sort of like, oh, that guy is just a freak. There's something wrong with him. He can like do these things. And you're like, no, I spent like 30 years practicing this thing, slowly getting better at this thing. Still not even that good at the thing. It's like just working away.
Finding Mastery is brought to you by Momentous. I am really excited about this partnership. After my podcast conversation with Kelly Starrett, he pulled me aside and he said, have you seen what Jeff Byers is building? Now, Jeff played in the NFL for a handful of years, and what he's doing now is he's building a world-class nutrition supplement company whose focus is in human performance. I was well aware, and Kelly put Jeff and I together, and we met over dinner. I leaned in with all of the hard questions, and I left dinner really excited about what they're building and how they're going about it. Since then, Momentous has earned my trust, flat out. They are walking the walk. They're holding themselves to the highest standards. They're dedicated to working with top experts in the field. They're really doing something nice here. They are committed to sourcing and using only the highest quality ingredients, and they invest heavily in rigorous third-party testing. They call it the Momentous Standard, and it's really become the gold standard for the industry. That's why they are also trusted by some of the most demanding, high-performing organizations in the world, especially in sport. Here's the products I'm using. Complete Sleep Bundle, for the obvious reasons. Collagen Shot, my wife loves this product. Ashwagandha for cognitive support. And I really like their creatine amino stack. It's great. It mixes really well. They got the right ingredients in there. They've done a really nice job there as well. They've got a ton of incredible supplements and formulas to choose from based on your unique needs. So if you're like me and you want to support your brain and body with supplements made and used by the best, just head to livemomentous.com/finding mastery or use the code finding mastery for 35% off all of my favorite products. What do you think, I'm going to go back to Dad in a minute, but what do you think that what are you good at? Yeah,
so
sure.
So little.
Come on, being humble. So, you've earned your nickname, no big deal.
No, I think the main thing actually is psych. Like
the mental part of it?
Psych meaning the motivation.
The stoke.
Yeah, the stoke for it.
Yeah.
Because I think particularly with free soloing, which is what I'm most well known for, like the climbing ropeless, I think that volume matters, like having done tons of reps, basically like doing a lot of climbing. And I've always been motivated enough to go climbing all the time, like always have the adventure, like do the thing, hike out to the wall, even in bad conditions and like try. And so I think that has allowed me to get the volume required to be a decent soloist. That's those same traits make you sort of a worse boulder in a way, let's say, because there are other aspects of climbing where it's better to not do that much volume. It's better to sort of focus high intensity efforts. It'd be like the difference between ultra running and sprinting, let's say.
You can't do it.
Yeah, you can't do both.
Yeah,
physiologically, right. It's like different things.
Yep.
And so I've always been really into sort of ultra climbing, tons and tons of climbing, wide variety of conditions, wide variety of styles. And that makes you feel pretty comfortable for the free soloing. It doesn't make you the strongest climber. It doesn't make you a great boulder, let's say.
So because of that, you've had lots of reference points so that you can map against something when you're in a heavy situation, like I've seen or felt or smelt something like this. An answer is likely in this region.
Yeah, and not panic in like weird situations, when stuff starts
Yeah.
to go a little sideways. Like literally last week, I had a whole soloing misadventure, which kind of reminded me of my 20s. Like I was like, this feels like something I would have done a decade ago. It was like a total botch.
And how old are
But
you now?
I'm 30. I turned 40 this summer.
Yeah, congrats.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, okay,
Thanks.
good.
Yeah.
So what was the debauchery here?
Well, I went out to go scrambling in the afternoon
And scrambling means
like to go free soloing. So I was gonna solo this like 2,000-foot wall, this like thing by my house.
average
and,
day for you? 2,000 free solo? 2,000
Yeah,
foot
well,
free solo?
yeah, kind of
is?
average. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, it was going to be sort of an active rest day. It was a rest day from like real hard climbing, but it was kind of going to be a casual outing. Anyway, but there were 50
Is
mile
this
an
a
hour winds.
consequential wall?
I don't know if it ever been soloed before. So I mean, but it's not like rad. It's not cutting edge.
Okay.
Like nobody would know about it. It's not like reported or anything.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm just giving some context because it's like no big deal. I'm going to go do this thing. So free soloing for you is not something that happens once a year. You gear up for it. Cameras on. I'm going to try this thing.
No, I mean, the big ones are kind of like that. The things you do for film projects, the
Yeah.
things you do for TV or whatever. And then occasionally the things you do for your personal projects where you're like, this is cutting edge, this is rad.
Yeah.
But in order to do the things that are cutting edge, you have to do tons of things that aren't cutting edge.
That's right.
It's like you have to practice.
Yeah.
So in this particular case, I went out practicing and I mean, it was supposed to be like 50 mile an hour gusts, but you never know with the canyons depending on the direction of the wind. Anyway, I was like, oh, that's nice. And so when I was hiking into the canyon, it's really late season right now. A lot of these routes you normally do more in the winter when it's cooler, but right now it's like kind of hot. But because it was windy, I was like, oh, it's kind of nice. And I was like, conditions were fine. Anyway, it turns out as I got higher up the wall, it was like ripping wind, like psycho wind. And then the hardest part of the route was like 700 feet up, and basically it was on this like really smooth panel in the center of this wall, and it was like insane wind, and I like basically wasn't really able to climb because it was like too intense. Like you're being shaken. Basically, it's like hard to even hang on because you're being like pushed back and forth by 50 mile an hour gust. And then
and just to paint the picture one more time, you have nothing to rely on. You've got your hands,
yeah,
your
I'm just
feet,
holding
your
on.
head,
Yeah.
and you're on the side of the 1,500 feet up at this point.
No, 700 feet up.
700 feet. And if you make a mistake, a 700-foot fall
Yeah.
is a real
Well, so
problem.
then the thing that made it all sort of traumatic was that in the middle of all this, it's like so crazy. I mean, also it's hard to describe how intense wind like that is, but like, so my backpack straps are like slapping me in the face and like hitting everything. I had no shirt on. And so like the straps are like slapping you and you're like, everything hurts. And then my chalk bag kept flipping over and basically like dusting my whole body with chalk. So like you can't really see and you're like, it's like, this is intense. Anyway, and then during all this, it's like 50 mile an hour updraft. Like basically my pants are like going, my shorts are blowing like crazy and my phone fell out of my pocket. And I was the only car in this like remote sort of 4-wheel parking lot thing. And I drove an electric car there. And so my phone is my key. And I was kind of like, oh, now I'm screwed. And so, then I'm like near the end of the hardest part in the center of this wall. But then I faced this dilemma. If I topped out the mountain, like if I made it to the top of the 2,000-foot wall, then to hike all the way back around to go look for my phone, I'd be sort of pushing it towards dark. I mean, it's kind of a big thing to summit the mountain and then descend and then go back to the base and look for your. So I wound up down climbing straight back down, just like reversing. I was like, time to just abandon ship. I was like, this is not my day. But it's kind of a bummer because I'd already done the whole hard part basically. So I had to reverse the whole hard part.
And you went down. Did you go down because of the wind conditions or your phone?
Both, basically. I was
Okay.
like, I kind of hit a point where I was like, I don't think I can go up. It's like too intense with the wind, too crazy. And I mean, when I felt my phone fall out of my pocket, I just stopped and like watched it go all the way to the ground. So you want to keep eyes on to see where it lands so you can go find it.
Yeah.
But
As
it
you're
fell
hanging on
700
the
feet.
side of a cliff.
Yeah, I mean,
which
it's
is
like
normal. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's kind of normal. Like
for you.
I mean, like anytime you're climbing, even when you're climbing with gear, if you drop something, you like really make an effort to see where it goes so you can find it again.
Okay.
Because like otherwise
Again,
you're just
a reference
scouring a
point.
canyon.
Yeah.
It's like, it's a whole mountainside and you're just like wandering around looking for a broken thing. It's like not that easy to find when you drop stuff off a mountain.
Okay. So I've got a
Sorry,
really
this is a whole
this
weird
is
story
great.
to
No,
unpack,
I've got
but-
a really tight question I want to ask you, but I'm gonna give you a preamble to get to it. This wasn't long ago. So you and I are not at all comparable in any way when it comes to sport. Okay. So it was, I don't know how long ago, but there was a big swell and it's in my local break here in LA. And I'm not out of shape, but I'm not in kind of nowhere near top shape to surf this, but I'm like, I got it. So grab my board and I'm on the beach. I'm looking at it. I'm like, oh, it's a little bigger than I thought. It always looks a little bigger from the bottom or something, right? Oh, it's a little bigger. Okay, good. You know what? I know I'm reading the current. I know exactly. I'm going to hug the jetty. Okay, good. I'm good.
You're
So
like, I wrote a whole book about performance mindset. Here I go.
Here I go. Here
You're
we
like,
go.
oh, no.
Right. And there's a bunch of people on the beach. Are like, yeah, go, come on, Mike, go. And I'm like listening to that. I'm looking at it, and I know that I haven't surfed, kind of this size in a minute. And I'm hugging so I get in. I'm good. My mindset is good. And I'm hugging it on the jetty to kind of take this rip out to stay out of the impact zone. And I don't know what happens. I can't stay in the current. So now I'm kind of drifting to where the impact zone is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. So I'm right now in a problem zone. And I should have turned back around and gone in and tried again. But I was in this mindset, like this walk of shame was not something I'm going to do. This was a dangerous mindset. This is not what I should have done. Okay. And so I did eventually get outside. I was so exhausted. Triceps are like blown up, like not what you want to have happen. My whole back is lit up and I'm exhausted out back. I had no business being out there at this day. So long story to get to this very crisp moment is that I didn't listen to my better judgment. So can you explain how you work with your mind when you've got some social pressures and you've got some ego pressures happening for you as well?
Well, in this case, in this particular story, I mean, there's basically no social pressure because I'm alone in the canyon. It's just,
Right.
So it's just ego, basically. It's
Yeah,
just
right.
my personal.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I was in very much a similar situation where it's like, it was very windy at the bottom of the route and I probably could have bailed then. But the thing is, I don't want to bail for bad conditions until they're actually untenable, until you have to bail. And in this particular case, I'm sort of like, okay, well, I gave my absolute best shot and then I had to bail. And so, yeah, the conservative thing would be to give up sooner, but you're kind of like, but then you would spend the rest of the day wondering like, well, maybe it wasn't that windy. I mean, as it turns out, it was like much windier as I got higher. I think just the nature of the canyon and the sheerness of the wall in that area and stuff. But that's not something that you could totally predict from below. I mean, you're like, oh, it's a windy day and it's forecast to be windy, but if it's like a south wind in the canyon, basically it just depends on the geometry of the canyon and like the actual specific aspect of the face. And so kind of like, well, I tried my best, found out that I couldn't do it and went home. Like, that's fine.
So you don't run into a tension there, or are you really good with answering the call of danger? Like the juice is not worth the squeeze. Because for me, there's a thin line between pushing just past a comfort zone into like a danger zone where there is a consequence, but if you don't go to that place, you don't unlock the thing that you need to unlock to keep growing.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. I mean, in this particular case, I feel like I pushed well out of my comfort zone and was like, okay, I pushed as far as I'm willing to push and this is not working out and now I'm bailing.
And how did you develop?
And then I down climbed very carefully, which, it's
down climbing is more dangerous than up climbing?
It's just, I mean, it's kind of the same.
It's okay.
But it's challenging.
The reason I ask is because there might be an added challenge, like, oh, I'm going to do, one hold. Okay, good. I got this. Like there's a target. There's a more confident posture I can imagine on a normal route up.
Yeah.
But then when you hit a zone where it's like, this is too dangerous, it very easily could flood the whole circuit, which is like, oh, I got to go into protection mode. This is beyond my limit. So now as I'm climbing down, I'm actually in a different body because of my mindset.
That's interesting. I actually don't think I experienced that so much. I think it's more like I hit a point where I was like, my goal was to climb the wall. My new goal is to climb down the wall. And now I'm just going to confidently move down instead of up.
Yeah.
It's like the same kind of, it was just kind of like I had one goal going into the day and now I've reached a certain point where I've completely reset my priorities for the day. It's like my new goal is to down climb, find my phone and make it out of here.
How do you do that? How do you maintain the clarity of goal even when you're in an edge pushing moment?
Well, not to say there weren't some moments in the middle where I was like, this is heinous. What am I doing?
What am I
hate
doing?
This,
Yeah,
this is
right.
horrible.
Yeah.
Especially with like the chalk blowing in my face and the straps hitting me. And I was like, oh, it's really hard to focus. And, but beneath all the external, like the physical sensations and like the challenge of it, I mean, there's still some, you hope some kernel of calm on the inside. It's like, and now we'll just do the next correct thing. which is in this case going down
Yeah.
very carefully.
Is that how you speak to yourself, like more technical, or do you speak to yourself more motivational, more like coach to have your own back? Or is it truly like, okay, find the next hold, good, okay, that's good. Next one, what am I going to do? Like
I think maybe more technical like that. I don't know. I don't even know if there is that much real self-talk. Like, should there be?
I don't know. Like, keep going. Like, what?
I mean, in this particular case, it was very just like, I was like, I wanted to go up. I no longer want to go up. Now I'm going down. And it was just mechanical. Like, okay, use this hold. I mean, I basically was reversing all the moves that I'd just done. I'd never climbed the route before. So as I'd been going up it, I was figuring it out. Sort of like, okay, here's a hold over here. There's a hold over there. Here's how I stay in balance despite the really, really strong wind. And so then on the way down, I was just like, okay, I'm now reversing these moves very mechanically, like put feet here, hands there, stay balanced.
Yeah, so it's truly task focused. Your attention is focused solely on the task.
Yeah, and that's particularly true on something that I haven't climbed before in this case, because I actually do have to think about the holds. You know, it was something, because sometimes climbing can feel automatic if you know the sequences really well, but in this case, I had to actively scan the wall and like look for the feet, look for the hands. And kind of where I bailed, it was important to look around because there was stuff out to the right, stuff out to the left. You had to like look for the clues, you know, like little tiny traces of chalk from previous climbers, things like that. But.
So let me see if I can combine two things. Like we were talking about when your dad passed away, and it can close the aperture of potential or open it.
Mm-hmm.
Post-traumatic growth is kind of an opening of the aperture. It sounds like you had, I'm not saying that you didn't go through all the stresses of losing a loved one, but you found your way in an opening to kind of take your life by the horns, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And if we square that with reversing your climb, it sounds like there's a string between these two, which is like, no, I'm not going to allow this moment to flood my system, to put me into an over traumatized state.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're pretty mechanical at that point.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, so I've talked quite a lot with some of my climbing friends about this, like why two climbers can have the same experience and one comes out of it totally traumatized and another comes out of it as like, that's just a normal day. And actually, even while I was up on the wall, I mean, and just to be clear, this whole experience I'm talking about the other day with soling in the wind and whatever, it's not as if this is like some unique experience for me. Like this kind of things happen tons. Like it used to happen a lot more when I was younger, just because I made worse decisions probably. So I haven't had anything quite like that in a while. But variations on that theme happen not infrequently. You know, it's like where you get into something a little beyond what you expected and you have to sort of manage one way or another or retreat or whatever. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, while I was up in having that experience, I mean, it did occur to me, I was like, is this the kind of thing that like ends a soloing career? Not because you fall and die, but because you're like traumatized from it and you're like, I never want to do this again. But
yeah,
I was like,
that's
no,
where
I don't think
go.
so. I think it's just, you know, it's just just a bad day in the wind.
I think that's what you do though. I think that you've got this model that you use everything in your world, internally and externally, to build. So going down is like, you know what? I made a good choice.
Yeah.
I'm a safe climber.
Well, actually, and I even justified it to myself because the thing I was trying to do was supposed to be like 14 pitches, which is like the lengths of the segments of the climb, and then some easy scrambling to the top. And I did the first 6 or 7 and then reversed it. So I wound up doing like 12 or 14 pitches because, you know, you kind of double what you did.
Okay.
And I was like, well, it's basically the same as if I climbed the route because I also did the whole hard part and then down climbed the whole hard part. So I was kind of like, well, even though I technically failed on the thing that I was trying to climb, I was like, I actually did as much hard climbing as I was intending to do for the day. So I was like, I'll call the day a success. And I found my phone at the bottom, and even though it was completely destroyed, it still functioned. The Bluetooth still functioned to unlock my car, and I was able to drive home. I was like, what a day, you know? I was like,
all right. I think that
though I'm not trying to repeat things like that, you know. It was.
You're not trying to repeat any of this.
Yeah, I was like, this is a mistake. But
I think that what you just described is maybe one of your crown jewels.
The growth mindset around it.
Well, just the way that you frame situations, you have your back. You use your external world and your internal world, no matter what the circumstances are, and you're using it to take a step forward. Whatever that is. Like, yeah, that was a success. Well, I did this many and this many, and you know what? And totally. I reached a limit. Good job. Like, it's hard to get to the limit.
Go me.
Go me.
It's like, I made a lot of bad decisions today, but go me.
But it never sounds like that in your head, does it?
No, on the inside, you're like, what an idiot.
Yeah,
Well, I spent the
right.
whole evening at the friggin' Apple store and then like AT&T, like changing my,
You did?
like new phone, switching my number, like, cause the thing was shattered. Like it was all kind of a debacle. And I basically wasted my whole evening, like dealing with my stupid decision. I was like, this was a bad choice. And I like wasted a lot of time.
And so similar to like you find yourself in a heavy situation. Again, I'm going to say this one more time. I think the crown jewel is you don't say to yourself, like you say, maybe what an idiot, but it's not like it gets in. It's not like it corrupts your self-esteem, your self-worth, your self-confidence. It doesn't corrupt you.
Yeah, that's probably, I've never really thought about it that way, but yeah, it's probably kind of true.
How did you?
I think that I'm a very optimistic person, basically, like believe in human goodness and the general like positive trend of the universe. And maybe because I grew up seeing Star Trek, my mom was really into Star Trek. I grew up like, but it's very utopian. It's very like positive, future focused. And I don't know.
I think you'll maybe appreciate this is that I haven't met a world's best, now including you in this conversation, that isn't fundamentally optimistic.
Well, yeah, you have to have a lot of not just self-belief, but belief in the goodness of the world in order to put yourself out there and try something that hasn't been done or like try to push. It's like you have to believe it's possible if you're going to push like that.
Period.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's true for entrepreneurs and everything as well. It's like, if you're trying to like create the next big company or do something, you have to believe that it can succeed.
Do you have clarity of a compelling future that you're working toward?
I don't know. That's a good. I mean, instead of sitting in chairs, we should be lying on a sofa. Like I need to recline. Be like, okay, you need a little pendulum. Oh, like that's like straight therapy.
Poorly lit.
Yeah.
Right.
Turn down the lights in here. Like,
yeah, right.
I don't know. I mean, are you asking like what is my vision right now? Because I think in this exact moment, I'm sort of struggling with that exact question. It's like, oh, what should I be working on? Like, what's the best use? I think that's as a self-coached athlete. The thing with rock climbing is that there's no like team. There's no team. There's nobody around you telling you what you should be doing. It's like, my whole quote unquote career as a climber, I've just come up with goals that inspire me and then push myself to do them. And so I think that the biggest challenge, from time to time, and of course I've faced this in the past sometimes, but it's basically sort of apathy. Every once in a while you're just kind of like, well, do I need to do that? Like, because it's freaking hard work. And especially as I get older, it's like probably harder and harder work. You surprise yourself with your own success less often is what I'm finding, I think. And it maybe not because I'm aging, but also just with kids now and like family stuff, and I work more and I do a lot of stuff. But I think one of the most joyous moments in climbing is when you do something you didn't think you could do. And this isn't necessarily with free soloing. This is like when you're climbing with a rope and you're like, oh, I'm trying something that's in my limit. It's really hard. But then every once in a while you just have moments of sort of transcendence where you're like, oh, I did something. Like I was sure I was going to fail, but I did it. And I was like, oh my God, I totally exceeded my own expectations. It was amazing. I'm so psyched. Mm-hmm. And like, obviously I still experience that from time to time, but definitely less often. I feel like in your 20s, you're like constantly surprising yourself. We're like, oh, I did something I didn't think I could do. It was incredible. Like now I'm rewriting what I think I'm capable of, and now I'm sort of like, every once in a while I have glimmers where I'm like, oh, I feel way better than I expected.
Finding Mastery is brought to you by Felix Gray. And one of the biggest challenges we face today is our sheer amount of screen time. It messes with our sleep, our clarity, even our mood. And that's why I've been using Felix Gray glasses. What I appreciate most about Felix Gray is that they're not just another wellness product. They're rooted in real science. Developed alongside leading researchers and ophthalmologists, they've demonstrated that these types of glasses, they boost melatonin. They help you fall asleep faster and hit just a little bit deeper in the stages of rest. And when I'm on the road, bouncing between time zones, slipping on my Felix Grays in the evening, it's the simple way to cue my body to wind down. And when I'm locked into deep work, they help me stay focused for longer without this digital fatigue that starts to creep in. Plus, I think they look great. If you're ready to feel the difference for yourself, Felix Gray is offering all Finding Mastery listeners 20% off. So just head to felixgray.com and use the code FindingMastery20 at checkout. Again, that's spelled Felix, FelixGray.com, and use the code FindingMastery20 at felixgray.com for 20% off. Okay, so our last conversation was a handful of years ago. You were kind of flying high post your most famous climb, where it was 3,000 square feet.
So that was before the film came out, but after the actual climb. I forget when exactly we spoke. 'Cause I was at USC.
It was at USC. It was an awesome.
It feels like a long time ago to me.
Yeah.
It's like so much has happened since then. It's like, I'm pretty sure the film came out after that.
It was pre-COVID.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, pre-COVID, but for me, that was like pre-marriage, pre-kids, pre-crazy film,
Yeah, right.
pre like my adult life, basically.
Yeah, it was a whole different world. There's something that you said about risk taking. So this is kind of pre-kids, pre-marriage, that I'd love to play it back and then have a reframing or an agreement. Like,
I'm super curious what I said about
what you
that.
said.
I mean,
Okay.
because in a way, it's a totally different person. That's like 10 years ago, and
Emma, can you play that clip that we were talking about earlier of how he was talking about risk?
So spending some time in the adventure world and the action, high stakes environments, there's a phrase that happens when I'll talk about some projects that I've been part of, and people will respond. They'll lean back and they'll say, "Why would they do that?" Speaking of you or somebody, like,
Yeah.
why? Well, I don't understand it. And then there's this unique phrase that pops out right behind it, which is, well, they can't have kids. And then something like, and they can't really love their mom. So I don't get the sense of that for you, but like, how would you respond to that?
I don't know. I mean, I don't have kids or family or anything like that, so I mean, I can't speak to that. But I mean, I think that I'm making very clear, intentional choices, and I would think that I will continue to make well-informed decisions, regardless of my family situation. I don't know. I mean, a lot of my friends, other professional climbers that I've done a lot of the big enchainments and things with, do have kids, do have young kids, and it's not as if anything has changed for them. I mean, the goal is always to survive. It's like, I mean, we want to live, so it's not like, it's not like that's going to change. That's funny. At the end, I'm referencing Tommy Caldwell.
You were.
And I still actually paraphrase something that he always says. I mean, he sort of jokes that he didn't want to die in the mountains before he had kids, and he still doesn't want to die in the mountains. And that sums up my current attitude still. I'm like, well, I didn't want to die in a terrible accident before I had my kids, and now that I have kids, I'm still not trying to die in a terrible accident.
And you're also pointing to your decision making. You're like, my decision making is pretty sound. So,
well, at least you like to think so. This whole little anecdote we were telling earlier, it's like hard to tell, but still trying my best.
So, has being a parent changed the way that you approach risk?
I mean, I don't think that much. I mean, and I recently did a difficult soloing project for a film thing that will hopefully be out in a year and a half. But it was the first sort of cutting edge wall that I'd soloed in a while. I told my wife that I was like, I think the thing that I'm doing is probably like top 10 free solos for me. And she was like, oh, because top 10 for me at this point is like, it's pretty hard. And actually, at the time, I think she didn't think that much about it. And then she was actually hanging out with Tommy Caldwell, and she mentioned like, oh, he said it was top 10. And Tommy was like, isn't that kind of messed up? Like, are you stressed? And she was like, anyway, but so it was the first like hard thing I'd done in a while for sort of extreme free soloing, if you want to call it that. And
you don't like to call it extreme?
Well, I mean, it didn't feel that extreme.
Top 10.
I showed up, I spent 2 weeks, I prepped like 4 or 5 days and did it, and it was great and had a good time, filmed on it. It was like, it didn't feel extreme, but it is challenging. Like the grade is hard. I don't know. It suited me well. But my point being that before I did it, I was kind of like, is this going to feel different now that I have kids? Like, is this going to be scarier? Like, am I going to get up there and find that I don't have it anymore because I'm just like visualizing my 3-year-old and, like our morning routine and everything. And the reality was that I had a great time. I loved it. I was up there. I was like, this is so great. Like, I love this kind of thing. I mean, because I did the prep, I felt confident, felt easy. Basically, it felt great.
So you didn't have the distraction that you thought like, at the base or somewhere in a tricky moment where it's like, man, maybe I shouldn't be pushing because I need to be there for my kids.
No, I mean, obviously I was thinking about I was facing on my kids like every time I could through the trip. But for the actual climb, it was like I did all the prep work required. I felt good. I don't know. Yeah, it was amazing.
You have a really rich insight about the difference between risk, danger, and consequence. Can you open those 3 up for us?
Yeah. I mean, so I like to differentiate risk and consequence. I mean, danger is kind of just its own thing, but most people use risk to sort of mean like something seems dangerous, like, oh, that's really risky. And I don't know what the actual definitions of all these words are. Like, I haven't used a dictionary, but I would prefer to use risk to describe the likelihood of something happening, and the consequences being what will happen if that thing does happen. And so in my case with free soloing, the consequences are almost always death. Like for the most part, if you fall off, you're going to die. So the consequences are incredibly high. But if you're watching a video or you're seeing a photo of somebody free soloing, you can't really evaluate the risk. Like you can't judge the likelihood of me falling off through an image because some of the terrain is really freaking easy. And oftentimes if you're seeing photos or video, you're probably seeing the parts that are easier because that's the parts we decided to film on. You know, for a lot of this kind of content, like sometimes I do the things by myself and then you go back and you film on the parts that are scenic or that like look great. And to the casual viewer, you can't tell the difference between the easy stuff and the hard stuff anyway. It all looks insane. You're like, that guy's hanging on the side of a cliff. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
But so, you know, basically, I think it's hard for a viewer to evaluate risk. You know, it's hard to determine how likely somebody is to fall off or how likely something bad is to happen.
Because for them, it's a perceived risk. For you,
for
it's
them,
actually not
well,
a
what they're
risk.
seeing are the consequences. They're seeing that the consequences are death no matter what. So they're like, that seems insane.
Oh, so the
like,
lens that they see it
consequences
through
are
is
so
the
high.
consequence.
Yeah, exactly.
I got you.
But then they sort of use the word risk. You know, but basically, because the consequences are super high, they sort of conflate that to mean like, oh, it's likely that you're going to die. And you're like, well, no, the likelihood of me falling off is practically zero. It's just that if I do, the consequences are severe.
That's right.
And so I think that there's a healthy attitude around evaluating risk like that, where it's like, just because the consequences of something are incredibly high, if the likelihood is incredibly low, you're kind of like, well, it could still be reasonable to do that thing.
You know, I think it was, I attribute something to you, but I actually, as we're talking, I don't think you shared it with me. I think it was Luke Akins. So Luke jumped from 30,000 feet without a parachute, into a net
Bunch
that
of boxes?
he built.
Oh, the net thing.
The
yeah,
net,
okay.
yeah, Heaven Sent was the name of the project.
Heaven Sent.
Yeah, so imagine that, 30,000 feet, you look down, your target is the size of a stamp, and
But it gets bigger as you go.
it gets...
That's
There's
the type of optimism. Yeah.
That's the optimist. That's great. And so when he called me up and he's like, Mike, you know, are you in on helping me with this project? I'm like, damn, dude, this is binary.
Yeah, either you do it or you don't.
Yeah, either you hit it or you don't.
But you're gonna hit it. I mean, does anybody miss?
So he did
he ever miss in practice?
86 halos, high altitude,
Yeah.
low openings, which are dangerous in themselves. You have to have special permission for. You know, for someone like him, not that dangerous. I mean, he is exceptional. For me, incredibly dangerers. Right? Okay, but so he was 86 for 87. Where
he
when
actually
he opened,
did miss once.
Yeah, so once. So going into the
Why'd he miss?
it was a win thing.
Oh, you know,
crazy.
like so he's like doing his best and he
Doing
just
his best,
gets
he's
blown away.
tracking, and like it's counterintuitive. You know when you're skiing,
But I guess that's the kind of thing though where you judge your conditions before you go, and
that's right.
you know,
And same to your point. Like, and there's gusts that happen similar to your climb.
and you have to suspect that of his 87 practice goes, he probably did a lot of his practicing in marginal conditions to see what the limits of the conditions are.
all types of
Like,
ranges,
yeah,
windy
you would
days.
assume,
yeah. And so, so that's kind of always that was hanging in his mind. But 86 for 87, he's world class.
Yeah, you're like on the day of, he's going to do it.
Let's
Yeah,
go.
That's chill.
And so on the day of, he was actually behind the target. And so meaning that he had to, you know, it's closing fast and he had to put his head down to increase his speed to be able to get to the target. So he didn't land right in the center. He landed just in the net. He survived. He was successful. But just like those last minute calculations, the last kind of 1,500 feet were heavy. And so...
But that's what he's practiced, right? I mean, that's like a normal day for him.
Yeah. The thrill was, this is where I get confused. The thrill at the end when he made it was like he was glowing. There was a thing. It was like the most alive I know Luke is in those moments.
Mm.
And I don't get that from you. I don't get that when you're on top of a wall.
But I think that's because rock climbing is fundamentally less thrilling than falling out of space.
That's right.
You know, I mean, climbing is a little slower, a little more.
That's right. Different DNA.
It is still deeply satisfying though. But I suspect that part of the rush that he was experiencing was having completed something that he'd worked on for so long.
That's
We're
right.
like, oh, I've achieved this thing.
That's right.
And so with climbing, I mean, I definitely get a thrill of achieving things that are hard. You know, like if you put tons and tons of effort into something and then you succeed, like there's still definitely a thrill around that. But it's just not the same as jumping out of space, you know, because that's psycho.
It's totally different. Now, so oftentimes like the most dangerous part of a thing is moments before the final success is going to take place. Like the last the last 3 steps to get to the top of the mountain.
Do you think that's actually a thing? I don't know if I believe that. I feel like that's sort of like a like a cliche, but I don't know. Or when people say like with climbing that accidents always happen on the way down, to mean like, oh, you have to stay alert the whole time. And you're like, well, no, but accidents happen on the way down for different reasons. Like with high altitude because with high altitude mountaineering, because you're like incredibly fatigued and like weather and whatever. Or with rock climbing stuff, because rappelling is like fundamentally more dangerous in a way because you're like hanging on the gear and whatever.
Yeah.
But I think those types of, like accidents happen at those times. I'm like, I don't know, is that true?
I don't know. Like, I think that you're probably pretty extraordinary at holding focus. And so you're not letting.
But don't you think anybody doing something cutting edge like that is focused all the way?
Yes, I do.
Like how many Olympians like coast across the finish line? It's like, no, people go all the way to the end.
There's one.
And they're notable exceptions. That's like those exceptions make the rules, because you're like, oh, that person got beaten by a nose because they eased up at the very end. Like that's embarrassing. It's like deeply embarrassing.
Yeah.
Or like in the NFL when people like spike the ball on the 1 yard line by accident. Yeah. And you're like, but those types of stories are funny because they're so rare, because you're like, what an idiot.
Yeah. Right. And spiking the ball on the 1 yard line what's the consequence there? I mean,
it's like not that big a deal.
It's not physical.
Yeah, but like when your life depends upon it. I mean, I bet his teammates made fun of him for like the rest of his career.
Yeah, you don't live that down.
Yeah. But it's like when your life depends on it, you're paying attention.
So that is, you're hitting on a couple things that are really important. One, that statement, when your life depends on it, you do what? How did you just say?
Pay attention.
When your life depends on it, you pay attention. When something really matters, you go all in with your intention.
Yeah.
With your attention, with your intensity, with the focus to be able to execute. We take life pretty casually.
That's because most of life is very casual.
Yeah, but at the deepest level, the consequence of you missing, on the surface level, you missing a joke that you're or a smile from your newborn or whatever, like, okay, there'll be another one.
Yeah, totally.
At the deepest level, you don't get that one back. It's gone.
Yeah. You don't get that one back, but you'll get tons more.
Maybe, if we're alive.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? Because
with some luck, yeah.
Yeah, with some luck, because we don't know when this thing ends.
Mm-hmm.
So like I can get somber quickly on this because there's an unknowing about how the bet that we're going to have another one. It's unknown. But for the last 53 years of my life, it's worked out. Mm-hmm. There is another one. But there will be a time when it's not. And I learned this from studying the samurai warriors, is like, I want to prepare to be great in my moment so I can be great at the moment, my last moment too. Mm-hmm. And so what you're pointing to is when something really matters, you're great with your attention and focus. I love that insight. I also love what you're saying is like, for your climbs, there's a compelling future that you're working towards. Now, there's a finite nature to it. And I think we need to pull both of those forward to live a great life. What is the compelling future I'm going to live as a parent, as a whatever, as a global citizen? What's the compelling, or what's so important that I can give all of my attention to it? Mm-hmm. So,
but I think that's the crux. That's the really hard part. Is like there's so few things in life that demand that level of attention, or that you want to give that level of attention to. And particularly in the modern world where there's so many other things that are engineered to take your attention. It's like, it's a little cliche to complain about that kind of stuff, but it's like there are just so many. I mean, just think like advertising, like stuff constantly trying to grab you and like take your attention. It's like you really need something that matters a lot to you to keep you focused on a certain path.
Especially when you're down a scrolling doom and there's the cheap dopamine hit. Mm-hmm. You didn't earn it, but you're getting that little kind of hit of like feel good.
You're feeling alive, like there's something happening, and then you're like, wait, there's nothing happening.
I'm just like a next
you're like,
picture.
My shoulders hurt from being hunched over my phone. You're like, what am I doing with my life? That's like terrible.
So what do you do to manage social media and the kind of the cheap dopamine?
Well, I don't have any of the apps. I still post. I have the accounts and I post stuff, but I send it to a friend who does it for me. Basically, I like send my captions, send photos, and so that way I can batch stuff. So if I'm on a flight, I can just like send a bunch of photos, send a bunch of captions, and then it just gets doled out over time.
Is that because you don't think that you can manage yourself with it, or is it uninteresting to you? Because
it's too interesting. I mean, that's the thing is that
it is,
because it used to be that, all the apps used to be way more benign, fewer advertisements, like chronological scroll, like all that kind of stuff, where it's just like a little less addictive, like designed to be less addictive. And so then I was kind of like, oh, this is fun. I see what my friends are up to. But then then it was like too much time. And so I would like erase the app sometimes, but then you like reinstall the app because you feel like you have to post something. But then when you're going to post something, you're like, oh, what's my friend doing? Like, oh, my friend has a new girlfriend. What's her deal? Like, oh, wow. And then you go down some rabbit hole and then you're like, what am I doing in my life? Like, this is a complete waste of my time. This is totally stupid.
Yeah. I mean,
anyway,
chunks of 28 minutes, you know, we lose them.
Yeah, no, I remember.
I'm just making that number up at 20
Yeah,
minutes.
no, freaking Instagram released, what is it, Reels or whatever, like their version of TikTok.
Yeah.
And I remember I was like sitting on the John and was like, what's this? And then just started scrolling and like, you know, like 45 minutes later, I get off the John. I'm like, oh, my legs went numb. I'm like, what am I doing with my life? And then immediately uninstalled the apps again and was like, no, I'm done with this. Like, this is psycho. Like, what? You know,
so that's a discipline. There's a discipline in you that comes through.
Well, but the thing for me though is that it only takes discipline once, because otherwise to uninstall the apps. And now, you know, because I've been having my friend sort of manage it for so long, at a certain point, she wound up changing all the logins and everything. Like, so all the 2-factor authentication is all through her now. So I can't log in even if I wanted to. And that just happened because it was more practical because she had to like log in and out of stuff and whatever. But so the discipline required was the one time when I erased the app, and then the choice to have somebody else help me with it. And that saves me from having to use self-discipline every freaking day.
That's brilliant. That's a thing that I learned. It's like a passing comment about when I go shopping for food, be disciplined in that moment.
Totally. And
because then your house
no,
is
that's
filled.
exactly like my house. When I'm sort of quote unquote on the program, when I'm like tight about diet and like training hard or doing whatever. Yeah, it's exactly that. There are no sweets in the house. You're sort of like, it's easy that way.
Then when you go to your cupboard, you know, you don't have to make a choice between the sweets and the whatever.
Yeah, exactly. It's not a hard choice. You're like, I'm going to eat anything I can find. And you're like, sadly, there's nothing to find. And so that's what you eat. Or like, oh, I have like sardines in the cupboard. I guess I'll eat those.
So you are disciplined.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say I'm any more disciplined than anybody else. I think, you know, you employ strategies like that to limit the amount of self-discipline required.
So you're clever in the way that you design your life.
Yeah, trick yourself. Yeah, life design type stuff.
Yeah. I love that you are living your life according to the way you wanted to do it, but I've made that up. There might be a hidden little secret that you're working from that you're like, yeah, look, I think this thing got away from me. I was pure. I was a dirtbag. I say that affectionately for folks that don't know what that means. That I'm living in your car to climb. Not into it for money. And then this thing happened. Now you're famous. You are asked to travel the world to share your insights and ideas. There's real pressures. You've got money and a house and a family and. Has this thing gotten away from you in any structure, or are you managing it well?
I mean, I'd like to think I'm managing it well, but no, that's always the question that I ask myself. It's like, oh, is this the path? You know, because if my only goal was to send to do the hardest climbs, to do things that are cutting edge, then obviously I would cut away any kind of corporate speed, any kind of work events. Like, you know, I host 2 podcasts. I'm like, I'll cut all that kind of stuff, you know, like any kind of extra things that all get cut away, and I would just try to send. On the other hand, the reality of climbing is that you can only climb like 30 or 40 hours. Even if you're adventuring all the time and having like crazy things, you can still only do it for 40 or 50 hours in a week. And that still leaves you plenty of time to do other hobbies and stuff, like say host a podcast or like do some work event. Right. And that's kind of the challenge for me, is that there's always going to be some balance. And, you know, now I have a family, and so that's like a whole other dimension as well. And so if I wanted to climb the absolute hardest things, then yeah, it'd be easier if I didn't have a family, if I didn't work at all. But I know that sending the hardest things in the world will only last for, you know, at the most another decade anyway. And then a lot of the stuff around working and having a family and all that is like me looking at the whole rest of my life. You know, I might be alive for 50 plus more years. I'm kind of like, well, maybe 10 of those could be devoted to sending. But what do I do with the other 40 or 50 years? I'm kind of like, that's where, you know, I want to save for retirement. I want to provide for my family. I want to build like a healthy, well-rounded future.
Let's do a comparison. Let's go back again 10 years pre-family. What was your purpose then? And
sending the NAR.
Sending the NAR?
Yeah.
The
sending.
Just like reckless abandon in sending?
No, but just like wanting to leave a mark in climbing, like wanting to achieve something in climbing, like do things that haven't been done, like do hard things, like improve as a climber, just go hard.
So was it notches on your belt that you had the most first?
No, I mean, not exactly first, but you know, you could sum it up as that, basically notches, like, you know, achieving things that matter, just whatever.
Okay. And was it for the experience of, and the knowing that you were able, or was it for the recognition that like, oh, he's top of the totem?
I mean, it's a little bit of all. I mean, like it's a lie if you say that recognition doesn't matter, because obviously being recognized by your peers and being sort of, impressing your friends always matters. But a lot of it is feeling like you're improving. I mean, so much of climbing, especially for me for so many years, going back to Yosemite every season, every spring and fall, each season you're trying to outdo what you've done the previous seasons. Like you do a route and then the next season you come back and you try to do that same route in a day. And then you come back and you try to do that same route in a few hours, or you try to free solo that route, or, basically there's this constant like progression of ways to get better at rock climbing. And so you just want to keep feeling like you're improving.
Is it fair to say that you made a fundamental commitment in your life to pursue that purpose?
Kind of, but not explicitly. It's like not as if I would have said that I was on this path. And that's kind of the thing, is that sometimes it's hard to tell until a decade later when you're like, oh wow, I was really like doing it for a long time.
Yeah. Okay. So how has your purpose changed or not? Go back now. Take us into present moment.
Well, I think present moment, like I still love sending, trying my best, but just the reality is that I spend a lot more of my time around family stuff, around work stuff, around everything else.
This is the thing, work-life balance.
So, yeah, and actually, let me just say though that the thing that I struggle with is, and I think this is maybe in the film Free Solo, but I think one of the things that my wife has sort of brought to my life a little bit is that she's always had this idea of like, well, why not have it all, or like why not do it all, and she brought that up I think it's in the film Free Solo, but toward the beginning of our relationship, I was kind of like, I should be single and angsty and like it'll help me send, and she was like, why don't you just have a happy, well-adjusted relationship and still send? She's like, why don't you just have both? Like, you don't need to be like depressed and angstful in order to perform. Like, why not be happy and still perform? And at the time that felt like a revelation to me. I was like, huh, like you mean I can be happy and still climb really hard? And in a way, I mean, it's really played out that way. Like we've had a great, now it's been almost 10-year relationship. It's like all happy and healthy. And I've still arguably done all my hardest things, in the last 10 years. Actually, that's probably true.
Wow. So you are doing harder things now than you did before, but
yeah, it's interesting actually. So this is the whole thing. So, I do a lot of corporate speaking, and the structure of my talks always sort of lead up to free soloing all cap, which now happened in 2017. So it's like a long time ago. And so I spent a lot of time talking about, the build up, the training, all the things I did before all cap. And then my show always just, my talk ends with me summoning all cap. And so I know my ancient history really well in a way, because I talk about all these stories all the time, but I sort of discount all the things I've done in the last 7 or 8 years because it's post all caps. It's like, who cares? And the reality is that nobody knows any of this stuff. Nobody cares. Like, it's just, anyway, so a while back, a couple months ago, my wife told me that I have all kinds of notes on my phone where I keep track of like training and climbing and just things and like plans for the year and aspirations and whatever. I have tons of different notes. She was like, you should have a note of all the things that you're proud of since El Cap, like climbs that matter to you, like basically like list out things that matter. And so I started keeping track of like, 2022, what are the things that I did in those years? And when I started listing out like climbing achievements that kind of would matter, I was like, none of them got any of the recognition that Free Soloing El Cap did, because they're not like that scale, but a lot of them actually are really cutting edge and like cool. And I'm proud of them. But like nobody really knows about it, nobody cares. And I'd sort of forgotten about a lot of it. And listing it all out made me sort of recognize that I've had like some very productive years since then. They just aren't El Cap, so you kind of forget about it.
This is like a little bit of a golden handcuff, is that it's a thing that you're most known for, and it's a moment in time. You loved it. You feel really good about Free Solo, but like there's something different about you than when we met in 2017 or 2018 or whenever that was.
Well, hopefully I'm slightly more mature, and I mean, I'm 10 years older.
But there's something different behind your eyes. What is the difference that
Is it a deadness? What do you see? I don't know. Is it a deep fatigue because I have a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old?
No, there's something. I don't want to put a word to it. I have 2 words that describe it, but how would you describe the thing that's behind your eyes? If you can, go back to the stage at USC and go back to like this moment.
I mean, if I had to guess, USC 8 years ago, whenever that was, I mean, I would have been a lot more shy in a way, and like way less used to public speaking, way less comfortable with that kind of state. I mean, also at the time that would have felt like one of the classiest things I'd done, where I'm like, this is great, it's USC, the storied institution. Like,
Yeah, right.
It all would feel like way more intense.
Yeah.
Whereas now I've just done so much more of that kind of stuff. It's like, it's, it's all a little bit more casual and fun. But
so the words I have is, and these need some explaining, is that there's a more openness, and there's it's like you're closer to the surface. So shy would be an interesting way to have the reverse of it, but you're closer. You're the porousness between
more open.
Yeah, who you actually are and how close that is to the surface feels way more available.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, I think part of that is just adulthood, maturity, just being a little more like you just mature into yourself.
For some.
Well, ideally, it's the aspiration
that
of maturity.
Would be nice. Yeah, right.
But then I think part of that is also the sort of well-founded confidence that comes with achieving most of the things that you're trying to do in life. It's like, I've gotten to do the things that I'm most proud of. And I mean, the thing with like, I spend so much time talking about the film Free Solo and free soloing El Cap and all that. And I'm like, at least it is the thing that I am incredibly proud of. It's like if you're going to spend a lot of time talking to groups about a thing, at least it's something that I am very happy. Like every time I see,
you don't cringe when you watch it.
No, it's like I'm so
it's
proud
a masterpiece.
Of it. Yeah, it's amazing.
It's a
masterpiece. Like the
masterpiece.
film is amazing. It's beautiful. The scenery is amazing. Like it just makes me happy on every level. And I'm like, that's great.
Yeah,
and so, to spend your time talking about something that you're excited about, it's like, it's good.
What is harder? What is scarier? What's more uncomfortable? You pick the adjective here. Vulnerability and intimacy versus, pushing an edge where...
Definitely the former.
It is.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So talk about how you manage or work through, maybe even bring up a moment if you can, where you were like, man, this is really hard for me. I'm imagining it's no details needed, but a conversation with your wife, or maybe it's
like reading my vows or something, like at our wedding. We actually had we got married during COVID. So we did like a tiny family ceremony, like during COVID, and then did like a giant, friend party at our house, whenever COVID was like less restricted. I don't know, like the next year or something. But yeah, like public displays of affection like that. I mean, that feels like much more challenging.
What's at risk?
And also in general, I would say that it's much harder for me to receive praise than to receive criticism in a way, which is interesting because I do so many public events where everyone's like, you're so amazing. But I find it like very draining. Eventually I go back to a room and I'm like, I'm so worked,
Why is that?
I don't know.
Huh.
I mean,
yeah.
Well, actually, and to be fair, if I had all those people telling me that I was shit, like that would probably be kind of draining too.
Yeah, right.
But like that would also
are?
be demoralizing.
Yeah.
But I think in general, it's just easier to take criticism in a way,
Well, I wonder if it's because
criticism can fuel you more in a way. Where you're like, like F that guy, like let me show him,
I wonder if because the praise, it's pulling you forward. So now there's a spotlight on you when that happens, which would be uncomfortable for healthy people, but feel really good. And at the same time, and I wonder if you're afraid of that drug, and so is one of the reasons you constantly kind of manage it or push it away or deflect it, because there is a drug in being recognized for being special, and if the drug source is constantly external, then we need them to do it, and it's a very dangerous proposition. If we can back ourselves and believe in ourselves and have a relationship that is grounded in something within ourselves, it's always available. There's a mastery to that. There's a dependency on the former.
Yeah, I've never really thought about it in this terms. I mean, I don't think I've ever struggled with like that internal self-belief, at least not in things that I feel good at.
I believe you.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Like obviously I spent my whole life like doing like the things that I think I can do, I really believe that I can do. I mean, there are plenty of things that I can't do.
Yeah, and are those things climbing and relationships?
Well, relationships, I'd say I'm terrible. I mean, relationships, I've muddled my way through and thankfully have stumbled upon a great wife and like managed to make it, managed to hold on to that for a decade. But no, I'd say I'm terrible at that kind of stuff. But maybe not terrible because actually, we've navigated. I mean, just navigating the whole free solo filming and then the tour and all that. I mean, it was like quite a relationship stress.
You did all that with with your
Yeah,
wife?
it was.
or-
So I met my then girlfriend right when we started making that film. And so it was 2 years of them making the film, which was incredibly stressful for a new relationship because it's like they're literally documentary camera crews following you around while you're like trying to date. It's like that's sort of weird and intense. And then there was the whole film tour coming out after that, which culminates with us going to the Academy Awards and all that kind of stuff. And you're like, it's all a lot for a new relationship. Like
It could have been a disaster in the making.
Totally.
Right.
But in a way, it actually worked. I don't want to say it brought us closer together, but it was like, because we probably would have been together either way. But I think, it was like a stressor that I think made the relationship better rather than worse.
I mean, this is so trite to ask this, but I want to ask it with the preamble that I really have a high respect for fear and its role that it takes, and we all face it. You have it, I have it. Like fear is part of the broth of living well. And if that broth is too salty, too much fear, like call it clinical anxiety, like.
That's a really good metaphor.
Yeah, it's part of the broth.
That.
Yeah, good. So what are the things that you are afraid of?
Oh, I mean, all the same things everybody.
Well, most people are afraid of falling, though.
Well, yeah, but I am too. I mean, I don't want to fall off something. It's just that
Okay.
I'm very confident that I'm not going to fall off most things.
Yeah.
Actually, I mean, and I say this to people at events all the time because I always have people come up and be like, oh, but I'm so afraid of heights. And I'm like, almost nobody's actually afraid of heights. Everybody's afraid of falling off and dying. Most people that say they're afraid of heights are actually just afraid of like falling off an edge and dying.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, that's totally well-founded. You should be afraid of falling to your death. I'm afraid of falling to my death. It's just that I'm pretty confident that I'm not going to fall off on easy terrain.
It's a tricky one because I too have all of that biological stuff right when I even get to an edge of any cliff, and I'm in control of my body. I'm standing at the edge of the cliff. There could be a fence there, but I'm a little closer to normal, and I look down, and I still feel all of that DNA biological stuff saying, hey, this is dangerous. And I can feel it. Okay, I'm not going to jump just randomly over the thing. But there is an impulse like, should I jump? Like
You do wonder,
There's
yeah.
a weird thing that happens. Okay, all that being said, the fear of death, what is your model of what happens after you physically die?
I think you're just done. Yeah, I'm not religious or spiritual in any way, so I'm sort of like, oh, when you die, it's like, it's like powering off a device. Like you're done.
Yeah, it's an interesting philosophical position is like, were we told, okay, so this I'm going to get into a dangerous territory where there's going to be plenty of people in both of our communities are like, man, you got some work to do here, Mike. But were we told from the institutions of religion that there's a better later, so be a good servant now to the powers that be? That screws with me. I have a low trust, I think, like most folks right now on institutions. There's a like, what's really the game that's that's taking place? And so were we told generations ago in my family that be a good servant, because if you're not, you go to a bad place when you die. And if you are, the rewards later are going to be amazing. And you're saying, yeah, I'm not buying into that. I think when we die, that's it.
Yeah, basically.
So does that increase your ability to live well?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, circling back to parents dying at a young age and sort of like experiencing loss, I think that's a reminder that when people are done, they're done. And, just like, oh, I have a very short amount of time.
So better live the best life I can.
Yeah,
and that for
or
you
do
involves
the things that I'm looking to do.
Do the things that I'm looking to do. Yours involves a tethering that's different than most people between physical life and physical death.
What do you mean?
Like
you mean the things that I'm trying to do are so close to
consequential?
Death in a way?
Consequential. More than the things I'm doing on a regular basis. Yeah. And do you think that I live a crazy life? Because people think you live a crazy life. I'm indoors sitting.
No, I think your life seems relatively. I mean, it seems interesting, but very normal.
Very normal, yeah. Right? Which would be boring and uninspiring. And I think you think that most people that live indoors are kind of crazy.
No, I don't think so. I mean, the thing is, like, I could see myself in a different life. Like, I would love to be doing what you're doing if I wasn't doing what I'm doing. Like,
that's interesting.
I can definitely see myself in tons of different worlds. Like I could. And I think maybe that's grown up with a rich imagination, like, which I think contributes to the life that I have lived, is that, I could imagine going on a totally different path. But, people, I sometimes get asked things like, oh, if you couldn't climb, like, what would you do? And I'm kind of like, anything, like, I don't know, I was studying to be an engineer. Maybe I would have been an engineer. Maybe I could imagine any other life, and I could imagine feeling pretty fulfilled in most lives.
So imagination, probably linking to compelling future clarity, probably linking to great motivation to actually apply yourself to do the things that you see in your movie. And when you see the movie, do you feel it? When you use your imagination, do you feel like you're actually in the movie, or is it more, does it have a lack of feeling?
I think so. I think that visualizing the right things can trigger the accompanying emotional state.
That's right.
Like if you really visualize, if you vividly think about falling to your death and things like that, then you're sort of like, well, it makes you feel a little, maybe not quite the same feeling, but close enough.
When you do imagination of like a new thing that you're going to do or something that you want to be great at, is there if you were to make up a ratio between seeing the success of it and seeing the mistakes and failures of it? Both are important, I think. What is the percentage relationship between the two?
That's interesting. I have no idea how to put a number to it, because it's probably not quite 50-50, but it's probably 70-30 positive to negative or something like that. I mean, because there's definitely a fair amount of negative, but overall it skews positive, I think.
And when the negative pops up, what do you do with it?
You just watch it the same as everything else. You're kind of like,
I rewind it. I'll catch it as soon as I can, and then I'll rewind the tape and then like lay a new track over it. Or what I'll do is I'll just kind of pause and reset. I want to lay another track over the mistake track, or put myself in the compromised situation and figure it out from there. Those are the two things I do.
See, I don't quite see that. I see the point of that, because that's like to learn how to do something well or to feel confident doing it. But I see all the different scenarios playing out. Like if I'm visualizing a hard climb, let's say, and you sort of imagine falling off different places, you imagine like your foot slipping, or you imagine like your hands feeling all slick and like it being humid or whatever. Like no matter how many negative things I sort of visualize, I don't think that changes the likelihood of anything happening one way or another, but it just allows you to sort of process all these different potential forks in the road.
Cool. So you use it for like almost an emotional framework.
Well, it's like scenario planning. It's sort of
cool.
like, these are all the things that could potentially happen. Me thinking about them doesn't make them any more likely to happen. It just means that I've at least considered the possibilities and then ideally mitigated against them.
Yeah, I do not believe if you close your eyes and see a red bicycle, it's going to show up in your like that's not how this works. There is evidence.
But I do believe that if you close your eyes and you visualize the things that could happen, you'll be less surprised if or when they do happen. And that's the whole point to me.
Brilliant. And that gives you an additional reference point. It's like a free reference point.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you get to practice without doing the thing.
Without any consequence.
Yeah.
The only consequence is feeling the feelings that, that might accompany.
Which is what you're trying to do anyway, because the idea is that you don't want to feel those things too intensely on the day of, like when you're actually doing the climb, you don't want to suddenly be like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm up here. This is so crazy.
Right.
Right. You're going to be like, oh no, this is exactly what I imagined it would feel like. This is normal.
Yeah. Let's go back to free solo for a minute. How many times did you see the route in your mind?
Oh, it's a huge route. So it was more like visualizing very specific sequences and certain boulders and everything.
And so would you play the whole thing in your mind?
No.
Or would you do
segments? I don't think I've ever visualized the whole route. It's too much. It's too big.
Yeah.
I would just think about the different segments here and there.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that
makes
sense to me.
To actually I can't. And even on the day of, like when I free soloed El Cap, I couldn't have visualized every move from the bottom to top, I don't think. Because there's a lot of easy filler climbing that I just knew that I would just climb. Yeah. That you just don't have to memorize because it's easy.
If you had like one thought for our community to live a great life, what would you leave us with?
Beats me. I'm here to learn, so you tell me. I don't know. I always just say like, do the thing, like whatever you're working on, like just do the thing.
I think it's important to know what the thing is that you're working on. That's what, I'm
that's
learning.
The crux.
Yeah, I'm learning that's a little bit of, you're in a transition phase right now.
Well, it's hard to say, or I'm just in a grumpy week. It's just, I split, usually I've got this Band-Aid on one finger. I like split one of my fingertips, which is like a pretty common thing in climbing. But anyway, I have a cut on my fingertip. And so I'm trying to do this like hard climb and I can't really hold on that well because my one finger split and it's just kind of frustrating and I keep failing and you're just like, oh, I'm like, what am I doing?
Yeah, it's amazing. Like one fingertip.
It's so embarrassing because like NFL players will like break their femur and like take a bunch of Vicodin and go back in and play out the rest of the game. And in climbing, it's like you split your tip, and it's like the tiniest cut on your fingertip. But the thing is you just can't pull as hard as you can on your fingertips if it's split. And so even though like in the grand scheme of human pain, it's like totally trivial. It's like nothing compared to like a boxer getting punched in the face over and over. But it does affect performance enough that you just can't push as hard as you need to. It's very frustrating. It's so sad.
Did you got a hangnail?
That's kind of it. Yeah, you're like,
right.
oh, my hangnail's bleeding. It's so embarrassing. But I just can't send my barrage. And you're like, God, that's annoying.
Okay, let's go back here. I would love if there's something I can do for you to sort out this transition phase about where you're going next. Is there anything there I can be a service, like of what you're really working on right now?
Well, I mean, like, yeah, what do I do next? It's like, I don't know. I mean, how do you juggle like what you should be doing versus what you want to be doing versus what?
Well, let's open up.
And how do you know when, I mean, I think for me, like climbing has more longevity than most sports. And so like I'm turning 40 this year, kind of like realistically, actually like one of my friends who's 65, I think, just climbed one of his hardest routes. And you're kind of like, oh, it's pretty good. It's a little different for me because I've been trying my very hardest since I was in my 20s, like since I was 10. Basically I've been trying as hard as I can as a climber. So it's not as if I have quite as much room for improvement, because I've been training like my whole life to this point. But I think there's still definitely some room for improvement. But like, how hard do I want to go? And I don't know. Like I've been climbing at this wall that's like over an hour hike up to this cliff, and so you have a lot of time to chit chat with your friends as you hike up to the wall. And the other day I was hiking up with a friend of mine who's a professional climber, one of the best sport climbers in the U.S., Jonathan Seegers. And he was kind of pushing. He was advocating that I try to do harder routes, like harder grades, because he's kind of like, oh, you realistically probably have a 5-year window at this point to like do the hardest things that you'll ever do. And he was kind of like, don't you want to feel like you've achieved the hardest thing you can in your life? And I was kind of like, yeah, I hear you. It would be nice to like have a bigger number on my resume or whatever. But I was also like, if I never climbed again starting tomorrow, it's not like I'd look back at my climbing quote unquote career and have any regrets that I should have done it differently. I'd be like, oh, I'm pretty proud of what I've done. I think I've done my best and it's great. Like that's fine. And so I'm kind of like, how much harder should I go? And, I don't know, which things do I want to do?
Where do you feel most alive? Is it on the wall or is it with family? Is it like...
No, it's like soloing walls. It's so great. I love just rambling up and down things.
Is it soloing or is it pushing the edge where there's, the consequence, danger, risk, skill intersection is most precarious, most exciting?
No, it doesn't have to be the most dangerous thing. It just has to be things that are... I mean, I think one of the challenges for me right now is that I was saying to a friend that I've sort of picked all my low-hanging fruit. Like all the things that I think are cool, like I've just done a lot. Like I've been going really hard for 30 years. Or I've been a professional climber for 17 years, and I've been going like hard the whole time. And so a lot of the obvious challenges and like things to do, I've kind of done a lot of it. And so now anything that's like new and exciting for me represents like a season-long project or like some kind of like big thing. Like a couple years ago, I did, I live in Vegas, like Red Rock is like the famous climbing area outside of Las Vegas. It's like these beautiful mountains. Anyway, over the years, I've soloed tons of different routes in Red Rock. And a couple years ago, I did this enchainment where I soloed the entire mountain range in a single long push. It was like 25,000 feet of vertical, like up and down every peak. I tagged every named summit and did like 14 classic climbing routes, like up and down all these things. Anyway, it was like a 36-hour nonstop climbing thing. And the whole time I was working on it, I was like, this is psycho. Like, why is this the thing that I have to do at this point? Because it used to be enough to just go in and climb a route and think like, what a cool day, I soloed this route. And now I was putting together this insane roller coaster ride up and down every mountain, climbing all the routes and all the mountains in a single go. And I was kind of like, is this what it takes now to be excited about doing a new thing? I was like, God, that's so tiring. And now I look at the mountain range and I am very satisfied that I did this cool traverse. I mean, I was proud of myself. But to do something better than that, I'm sort of like, oh, that's too much.
Is it too much effort or prep, or is it too much time away from
a little bit
your deepest investment?
Yeah, a little bit of both. That's the thing,
your
is
kids
that
and wife.
Yeah, I mean, most of my climbing goals right now are just so much more home focused and like training in the garage and just, because that way I can do breakfast with the kids, dinner with the kids. Like I'm always at home for at least the beginning and end of every day.
Yeah, I wonder if this is more about like this quote unquote work-life balance, which I'm not sure, I can't teach it. I don't understand it. But like, I wonder if it's more of that, or if it's more like, okay, am I in this last, call it 5 to 10 year window where I need to go big and have another thing? If it's that, I would want to know, like, am I answering that bell for others, or is that my bell that I'm
Totally.
ringing? You know?
No, that's a fair question, because you're kind of like, yeah. Though I don't think anyone expects anything of me at this point,
I think
really.
you've
And
got that kind of freedom.
yeah, and I mean, and I don't even necessarily expect that much of myself, but I just love, I like doing it. You know, it's like, it's so fun to,
Yeah.
and it's interesting, the last couple of years, like the biggest projects that I've done have been sort of media things, like TV projects or film things, because they're so much easier to justify the time away from family, because it's like we're getting paid and it's a professional thing and it's like a good work opportunity and whatever. It's just easier to do those, as opposed to a personal project where I'm just choosing to spend a month or two away from the family because I want to achieve something for myself that just like doesn't feel like right. And it's certainly not fair to my wife, who's then left with this like giant burden of dealing with 2 screaming babies. I don't know. So it just means that a lot of my climbing has been sort of work focused like that. And I love doing that, and I love those projects, but it's just not quite as, I don't know, it's not the same.
If you never got paid again, would you look for challenging routes? If you didn't get paid for this?
Yeah, I would still try to
That's still
find all
there.
the things that I haven't done. Like, you know, you just want to find things that are new and first.
Okay.
And
If people no longer had interest in you speaking about your life or your accomplishments or whatever,
I'd climb a lot more.
you would be okay with that.
Oh yeah, yeah. I would just climb more.
There's no drug for money. There's no drug for attention.
Well, not to say that it's not nice to get paid for doing something that you love to do, and I mean, I like to joke with my friends that corporate speaking is like the best gig in the world.
Which one?
Like,
What is?
corporate speaking, like just speaking to groups and stuff. I'm like, oh, I get paid to tell stories about rock climbing. Like I could literally talk about rock climbing all day. Anyway, I love rock climbing.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, yeah, it's the easiest work in the world, and I love, if I'm going to do any kind of work, I love doing that kind of work.
And what if that went away for whatever reasons? How would you design your life?
Oh, I'd probably just climb. I mean, I'm still sponsored by climbing companies, and I would just, I don't know, I'd just try to send more.
You try to send,
or if it all just totally wound down. If I got canceled for some reason,
that's
like I
right.
was just
Yeah,
totally
that's where
done,
I'm kind of going. Yeah.
then I think I would just hang with the fam and climb. I don't know. It'd be interesting.
So then, okay. So now you're making it a little bit more honest, right? I'd hang with the fam. So this is a little bit more about a balance between time with family, time on the mountain, and that sounds like that's the main challenge. Look, one of my great fears is that when I'm done here, when I die, is that my wife and my son, if they were to say, you know, good man, really tried his best to make a difference, but shit, you know, like kind of selfish in that, like he went after it his way. And I wish he would have spent more time with us. It's a fear that runs underneath for me, because they are my greatest supporters. They are my greatest challenger of me to be my best. And I do have that, like, at what point do I stop saying yes to the corporate gig that requires me to go to, you know, wherever,
the
Middle East or whatever,
right.
like.
But I mean, but your son's 16, so you must have a pretty good sense of if you nailed that balance, right? I mean, he's basically an adult.
Well, teenagers are tricky, you know, but my goal is, one of my, like, I want to ask you what success means to you, but one of my working definitions of success is a great adult relationship with my son. Like, I can't wait for that. Mm-hmm. But that means I need to have the right investments now too. Mm-hmm. And okay, so let's do that. Like, what is success when
as a parent, or like in life?
In life. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean,
do you know what failure is?
Well, premature death, probably. I mean, you know, or like poisoning all the relationships around you and like leaving the world a worse place. Yeah, it's interesting hearing what you just said though with an adult relationship with your kids, because actually, so I live on a property with 2 houses, and my in-laws, my wife's parents, live next to us in a separate house, which is totally amazing. And so it's kind of like a little family compound. But and then my wife and then my mom lives down the road, and so basically there's a bunch of family like in the area, and it's nice. But so it's been interesting seeing my in-laws and my wife as like their adult relationship, because my wife is turning 32 or something, but we've had 2 kids over the last couple of years, and my in-laws have been there to help with all the things. And it's just been interesting to see that my wife is probably closer to her parents now than she was through her 20s, because they're living together. They're like, they're helping with grandparenting and like all the things. And it made me realize that, I think I'd sort of traditionally thought of parenting as like from 0 to 18, and then your child is off in the world. And I'm kind of like, I don't know. I mean, my in-laws are like deeply involved, and they're like with my wife all the time. And I don't know. It's broadened my vision of parenting. It's more of like a lifelong pursuit, which is obvious, I know, but it's like interesting to see it.
Yeah, there was a moment where I thought I could go anywhere in the world and post up and be excited about a new culture. Like I've got this romance about Portugal. I've got a romance about New Zealand. Like, and then at some point I was like,
you like
wait,
places with surfing. And
there's all really good surfing there. And then at some point I was like, wait, hold on. Like, this is where I'm going to be and my family, and I'm there.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I'm
I totally
going.
agree. I think for my later years of life, and like wherever the family goes, I have 2 daughters, wherever they wind up settling. And if
don't
they
you
have
hope
kids
that
somewhere,
they stay in the same neighborhoods or same, like, so it's
yeah,
not,
or at least the same region or something.
right. Yeah. If I had 2, I have 1, I'd have 2 houses then.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
yeah.
I think that's totally the way. And that's what my in-laws are doing. They live next to us for most of the year, and then they live next to their other daughter for the summers.
Amazing.
When it gets like really hot in Vegas, and so they can be basically with their grandkids year round.
Where does your pressure?
Speaking of, I just had a nephew this morning.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, my sister-in-law had a baby this morning.
Congrats.
So anyway, the in-laws are there. My wife's going in a couple days. It's like, it's the first male in the family in like a generation. Everyone's had girls.
Oh, you have 2 girls, you said.
I have 2 girls, and I have a niece already, and then now we have a nephew. I'm like, oh, what a day. Yeah.
Where's pressure come from for you right now?
Well, I mean, there isn't really any, and that's sometimes what I think would like. In some ways, I think it would help if there was somebody telling you like, you need to do this, because like I think I'm capable of doing a lot more if I tried. If I wanted to work that hard. But you're kind of like, I don't know.
Yeah, I think this is the challenge of having much.
Mm-hmm, totally.
And
it's funny because you don't want to complain about being successful, but you're sort of like, but I think the joy is found in the challenge and the striving and the struggling. And if there's nothing to strive for or struggle for, then you're kind of like, oh, where's the fun?
But I'm excited for you to teach. Let's revisit maybe in like a handful of months or 6 months or something to teach. Like, what are you learning about? Because I think the new kind of quote unquote pressure is from much, a love of climbing, time away from family, and investment in family is kind of the let's go back to the broth, the broth that you're trying to sort out the next phase. And again, it's like time with family, time with climbing. It sounds so simple when you break it down like that, but that's kind of the new, the transitional phase that you're in. It's not, am I going to go climb the next highest notch for my peers or for me to know that I did something special? Like, I don't think you need that. It doesn't sound like it'd be nice. It's good. It's exciting. But the real tension is between time on the mountain and time with family. And I might just be projecting on you what's happening for me, but that's what it sounds. There sounds like there's a similarity there.
Yeah, it somehow feels easier to justify time away from family if it's for something cutting edge, if it's some rad objective.
Yeah.
Because when you're just like, oh, I just want to go climbing. I just want to go out with my friends and climb this route that I've climbed a million times before. You're kind of like, that's hard to justify. So you're like, or I could be at home to do school pickup. And also just so that my wife has enough time to like do her own projects. She's like working on a book project and like doing her own stuff, And so I think that when you focus on the cutting edge stuff, or even like I was saying, like doing TV projects, like big projects, it's just so much easier to justify because you're like, well, you have to do that because it's like some big thing.
That's right. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think you're kind of right though. The navigating all those like big project versus small project versus family time.
And I wonder,
the interesting thing with family time though is that I think that, it's like you obviously don't want to be 100% focused on your kids all the time because that's not healthy for your kids either.
It's not.
And I've sort of found that if I have several hours a day of parenting, I'm really into it. Or let's say like 2 or 2.5 hours of like full play devoted to my 3-year-old, like we're doing a thing. And I do that quite a lot. We spend a lot of time, we have a swing set and we like spend a ton of time on the swings, just like playing on the swings and hanging out. And I'm like, that works. Beyond that though, I can't do that many hours a day of just like playing with the child. But I also, and I could be wrong about this, but I feel like she gets a lot out of that. You know, it's like you don't need to see someone all day, every day to have a strong relationship with them. You can have like meaningful interactions when they matter.
Quality of time is way more important than quantity. There's a balance between the two.
Totally. I feel like I'm only good for a certain amount of quality a day.
There you go. Right?
So I'm kind of like,
that,
and maybe that's a personal failing, but I'm kind of like, I can do a few hours of like quality a day.
Yeah.
But beyond that, I'm like, oh, like I just don't love kids the way some people love kids. And I mean, even my kids, I'm like, I love my kids, but you know, I can only play with my kids so much every day.
Your commitment to be honest is cool.
Yeah. Well, I suspect most people feel that way.
Yeah. Right. Like, I think you're right.
Like, and I mean, and I've met plenty of other people, like, you know, say my mother-in-law has like this remarkable ability to just like be with kids and be present and play like almost indefinitely. But for me, it's like there's just always something in the back of my mind with like there are other things I feel like I should be doing.
Yeah,
you know, it's like it's just. I mean, I can do a few hours and I'm like into it. It's so fun. It's like beautiful. But then you're like, okay, I should be like training or you know.
If you could sit with a true master, who would that be?
Well, I'd say I've met a lot more masters of craft.
Yeah,
I've met a lot of people who are good at a thing.
Mm-hmm.
I would say I've met very far fewer masters of masters of self. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I'm interested in both because I mean, I love masters of craft. Like I love like literally any craft. Like I love meeting people who are very, very good at a thing because I find that so interesting. Like how do you get so good at the thing? And I find that even if it's a thing that I don't care about, like have you seen the movie, what is it, Hero Dreams of Sushi?
I mean,
like, yeah, it's incredible.
It's just incredible. So good. Yeah.
Yeah. So like that movie.
There's a tortured nature to that though. Like,
but like, I don't care about sushi at all. Like I don't care about rice. I don't care about fish. I mean, you know, I'll eat it, but I'm not.
How long
like,
did he have to make eggs for before he actually?
Yeah, exactly.
Son.
Yeah. But so I think that's a perfect example that if someone has devoted enough to their craft, then they are fundamentally interesting. You're like, that is cool.
Okay. So who would it be?
Kobe, if he was still alive. I'm not allowed to just choose somebody from the grave.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And where would you sit with him? And if you only had one question, this is like Reductionist 101, but
I would want to have lunch with Kobe, like eat a salad with him and just be like what kept him motivated for so many seasons. Like I don't know, like I find Kobe interesting because it feels like, and I don't know that much about basketball besides like reading a few books and things, but it feels like he was maybe not as talented as a lot of other players, but he just worked so hard and was so great and, you know, achieved so much. And I'm sort of like, I find that more interesting, maybe because it strikes a nerve, or, you know, it's like I feel kind of the same way. It's like, what do you do when you don't have that much talent, but you love the game and you just try your hardest for a long time?
In your mind, do you think Kobe was more internally driven or externally driven?
Oh, he seemed internally driven. I mean, certainly all accounts are like that he was like psycho about training, like pushing himself, trying to be the best.
To be able to do the thing, not to get recognized or paid for the thing.
Yeah.
It's good to have both.
Yeah. But that's the thing. I mean, even the most internally motivated person still appreciates external recognition. You know, because if you bust your ass at something all the time, it's nice for somebody occasionally to tell you that you're doing a good job.
Yeah.
It's like external recognition is still satisfying for anybody. I
and
think.
You get told that you are special.
Yeah, but I don't believe him. That's the key. It's got to be like water off a duck. You just let it all just roll right off.
You don't feel special. Come on.
No, I'm proud of the things that I've done. I do think I'm good at a very particular thing. But I mean, I'm not even like all my friends who are climbers are all better than me for the most part at specific aspects of climbing. You know, obviously there's
but the world doesn't know their name. It's an interesting dilemma that you found yourself in.
Well, yeah. Well, that's why it's easy to ignore the positive, you know, comments, because you're kind of like, well, you know, I mean, I know all my friends, like literally all the people that I carpooled with to the crag the other day are like basically better than me, you know, but they're not like globally known. You're kind of like, I mean, one of them is a freaking pharmacist in town, you know? Like, I mean, yeah, most of my peers that I'm climbing with in Vegas are like computer programmer, pharmacists, like a doctor, you know, they're all just like dudes with jobs.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't say that they're better climbers than me all the way around, but they are kind of better at specific things, and they certainly have moments. And so
it's a weird thing, like to look around your friends and be like, I'm going to make something up. This is for maybe you, but for other people in our community. Like, you know that they're better, but you're the one that gets stopped in the airport, and you've probably got more money in your bank account than they do. And you know, and they know that you're better, that they're better than you. It's an interesting...
No, but they actually probably wouldn't say that they're better. They would say that, like, yes, they can outperform me in a very specific way. And, you know, I look at them and I only see the thing that they're better at. they would look at me and be like, well, you can do all these other things in climbing
Like,
that,
come
that
on.
they can't
Yeah,
do.
right. Like,
yeah,
and,
they'd
and
be
they
like,
maybe wouldn't free solo
yeah, anything.
anything. Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah, but the
Yeah.
thing is, like, I'm looking at like board climbing is like when you train on like a training board. Like all my friends
In
are
a
better than me at
garage or
board.
in an indoor facility.
It's like absolutely what I'm worst at in climbing, and all my friends are better than me at that kind of thing. And so I look at that and I'm like, literally everyone's better than me. And they would look at that and be like, well, you're not the best on this particular training apparatus, but you, I mean, I am a good rock climber. Like I can get up like mountains and things.
Yeah. Is there one that's sitting out there that is scaring you that like if you'd like to go challenge yourself on it?
Mountains?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. There are a bunch of like big walls in the world, and they're definitely on like a life list.
Yeah.
And I think that some of that, as my kids get a little bit older, I'll be more willing to do some of the big expeditions again, like leave for a month or two to like do things that are exciting. But it just feels like, well, we have a 1-year-old. It's like, do I need to do that right now? It's like, maybe I'll wait till she's 5.
I had a motorcycle for a long time, and I kind of grew up on them, and it got stolen locally here. It was a Harley, and my wife was like, "All right, we're done until he's 18." I was like, "What?" And she's like, "Come on, just donor cycles, like just." And then she like looks at me, and I've been married to my wife for like 30 plus years. We're best friends, and she looks at me, she goes, "Well, it's okay if you want to get a bike. Like, do you have any interest in the name of the man that's going to raise your son?" I was like, "Oh my God, come on."
That's harsh.
Yeah, it's really
like, come on.
Come on. Yeah. Okay. Just to wrap this up, I got a fun, one of your dear friends, Jimmy Chin, he's been on the podcast, and I've been able to surf some fun waves with him. And I think he's an amazing human, maybe one of the world's great climbers as well. He carries gear and, like.
Maybe not world's great climber, world's great climbing cinematographer.
There you go. Yeah. Okay, good. Fair. Put him
No,
in his place.
He's a great climber. But the reason he's such a great photographer is that he's fit enough to stay ahead or keep up with everybody.
Yeah,
in harsh mountain environments and like on cliffs
with big gear.
Yeah,
and he fits in environments really well.
Definitely.
Like socially as well.
Yeah.
So I asked him. I said, "Hey, Alex is coming on the pod. Do you have a question for him?" And he says, "That's a tough one. I've been interviewing him for 15 years. Has his idea or definition of success changed over the years? What was it in his 20s and what is it now?"
In my 20s, my definition of success was sending, like achieving hard things, like doing something cutting edge in climbing. And I think now, having done that a lot, like having achieved most of the things on my to-do list over the last 15 years, I think it's maybe rounded out a little bit. I don't know. I'm sort of like, no matter how much of that you achieve, like, do you succeed in anything? Like, have you actually gotten anywhere? I don't know. So now it's slightly, my definition of success has rounded out to be a little more like rich, full life, like happy family, like just all the, I don't know. It's more like there's no finish line. There's no like point where you like achieve success. It's trying to lead a meaningful life the whole time, like constantly, which for me, I think helps to keep setting goals for myself. So you keep, like, it's the path that's so satisfying, like feeling like you get up early and you train and you eat well and like you're living your best life and you're like the best version of yourself. And I think that's what's so satisfying in life. And I think that's easier when you have big goals for yourself or like things that you're trying to achieve, like goalposts. Maybe I should think of it as like gates on a slalom course. It's like as you're winding through life, it's like, well, you need the gates to help you steer your way down the mountain, or in my case, up the mountain. But, I think that's kind of my definition now. Like I'm trying to stick to the path.
If you were to finish this thought, to live a meaningful life, how would you finish that?
I have no idea. I don't know. To lead a meaningful life, I don't know. You just do your best. You stick to the path. I've always seen it as, I always call it like if I'm on the program, like to me, the program is like I'm training, I'm eating well, I'm like going to bed early. I'm not like doing any self-sabotaging behavior. I'm not like staying up way too late or like binging sweets or like doing things that are not really in your best interest, but you just do them from time to time anyway because you're like, F it, I just want to live a little, but you kind of know it's stupid. Like, so for me, being on the program is kind of living my best life.
It all comes down to?
I'd say it comes down to having the right goals, having like the things that keep you motivated.
Yeah. So it's incumbent that you really think deeply about where you're putting your effort.
I think so. Otherwise you eventually die anyway, and you're like, what did I do with all my time?
It's a great place to end. It's a great place to end. I'm curious if there's been any unlocks or anything interesting that's happened below the surface for you during the conversation, or not. It doesn't need to be.
I mean, I think the framing around family and just, I mean, the sad reality is I'm just easing into middle age, and yeah, you just wonder, like, is this what all middle-aged people grapple with, or is this?
No, you're different. you're different in this, like, because not most people don't really understand what it's like to design their life around what matters most. And so you've got two things that matter a lot to you now, and that's a new dilemma. And I'm rooting for you. If I can be of any assistance, you've taught me a lot from a distance, and I know we don't really know each other, but you've taught me a lot. And so thank you for how you show up in the world and what you represent in people that want to live a great life.
Oh, I appreciate that. I'm just doing my best, just muddling through, just trying.
But it's that statement. It's that humility and the honesty.
Well, I guess because we're all just muddling through.
Yeah, I am a mess in progress as well, so I appreciate it.
Totally.
Yeah, I'm rooting for you, man. I love how you've designed your life, and thank you for sharing as much as you're able to do with us today.
No, I appreciate it.
Oh, one more thing. Where do we find you? And name of your foundation is?
HonnellFoundation.org. You can find, I'm not trying to promote anything in particular. You can find me on social media, but the thing I care more about probably is the HonnellFoundation.org, where we support community solar projects around the world. It's just been my own sort of passion project for the last 13 years or something.
Good. All right, man. I appreciate you. Thank you, Alex.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, Emma, who could possibly follow that? I mean, Alex is so good.
Well, it's actually all on you.
Come on.
We're back on our next installment of Ask Me Anything, where
Okay, good.
it's our listeners' turn to ask the questions, and with the help of Yogi as the voice of the people, your turn to come up with the answers.
You know what's really fun about this is that I get to do this with my friend, Yogi Roth. This is another opportunity where we turn the microphone around, and instead of diving into mastery through the lens of our guests, we are going straight to you, our community, for a unique Ask Me Anything episode. You submitted so many good questions about life, performance, relationships, navigating the complexities of the full human experience. I mean, our community is really strong. You guys brought it. But we had to split this one into two parts. So Yogi and I were sitting down here for part 2, where we sat down to answer those questions and perhaps to get us a little closer to our personal best. So I want to encourage you to tune in once more to hear your questions, my reflections, and an exploration of what matters most, right here on Finding Mastery.